Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about resilience and some of the ways that we're improving the resilience of our services at Atlassian. And just so we're on the same page, when I talk about resilience, I mean for the service as a whole. So I don't mean from some little bit of code that can be resilient to specific events. I mean from the customer's point of view, is the service performing or not? So I'm talking more sort of big picture stuff. But first, why does resilience matter? So in preparing for this talk, I came to the realization that I've spent about 10 years or more being responsible for customer-facing services on the internet. And when I think back to 2004, it was such a different time. So like 3 nines were top-notch in the customer's eyes, and most of them didn't even know what that meant in terms of downtime a year. Back then, Microsoft Outlook checked mail every 15 minutes, and if your IMAP service was down for a few minutes, most people didn't notice. And if they did, some of them didn't even care. Downtime on the weekend was considered perfectly acceptable. And mobile users were pretty much sort of non-existent. But let's sort of fast forward to today. So today everyone has pretty much about 20 apps on their phone. They'll instantly notify them if there's something there for them to engage with. And if your service is down or unavailable, well, that really hurts. And if the other 19 are up, then that's even worse. So the expectations of customers have shifted since then. We live in a world now where everything's expected to be available 24/7, and the bar has been raised significantly, especially when it's so easy to change service providers with the use of a credit card. And sometimes we don't even need that. So that's when trust really starts to matter. So I'm a fairly loyal person, both in work and brand selection. And I once had a bad experience with an electronic manufacturer's customer service department, and I've never bought any of their products since, and I probably never will. So resilience of your service will play a lot into that trust relationship. And for customers, it's seen as a basic need, even if it's probably not that basic to provide. And if you can't deliver on that, then that really hurts that trust relationship. And many other companies understand this. So recently, Google Compute Engine had an incident where they had 18 minutes of downtime. And in their post-mortem that they posted publicly, they said that they were going to give 10% of credit to all those who are affected. And they said they make specific mention that this exceeds what they promise in their SLA. So essentially, they're willing to give 10% of credit for what's really about 0.04% of downtime for the month. So they're really trying to highlight how much they value that customer trust relationship. And it kind of speaks to this statement that building trust can take years and regaining can take forever. So you really don't want to get into that point where you've already lost that trust. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story at Atlassian. So I started several years ago in the infrastructure team, and I was hired as a systems administrator. And the infrastructure team was sort of your standard IT department. We're responsible for data centers and servers and routers and switches and networks. And pretty much everyone did every piece of this role. We didn't have specialist network engineers or DBAs. It was just everyone did everything. And we also looked after a bunch of public-facing services, and this included things like the incident management for that, and also, at the time, service deployments. And one of the main ones that I sort of got attached to, that they liked to come to me for, was the billing platform. And this was once described to me as the crown jewels by one of the developers, who was an Englishman. And with the fact that we had a very sort of public lack of Salesforce, that really sort of stuck with me of how important it was. And I also came to realize it's a really important part of the customer trust relationship. So this is one of the first interactions customers will have with our products when they want to trial or buy. And if this is unavailable or it's down, then that's sort of really going to hurt us, both financially and in terms of any future interactions. And unfortunately, when I started, it was a really bad situation. So we lived in a sort of a very siloed environment at the time. And the developers of the billing platform, they actually sat pretty much sort of right next to me. But we may as well have been in different offices. This was sort of back before we had things like continuous deployment. So the way that we would deploy services for the billing platform is they'd create a ticket that would get assigned to my team. And usually I'd be the one to pick it up. And they would then add the war artifact to the ticket. And I'd then schedule some downtime and take that and deploy it. And hopefully things went well. And they didn't always. But if they did, I'd close the ticket and be sort of, it's back to your work. And I'm back to, switches and routers and whatever else could come along. And then we just hope that no customers found out, or no customers complained that there was an issue, because sadly, this was the only way that we knew something was wrong. Back then, for a billing platform, we didn't have any monitoring around how many orders we were placing a minute, what type of order it was, or even what type of product. I mean, we had performance metrics, we had CPU and memory, but for a billing platform, that was pretty kind of useless. We actually once had an incident where we were giving Confluence away for free, and we didn't actually know about it. Thankfully, though, a change happened. So we ended up having a new product-focused department where we brought a lot of the previous functional teams into one location. So we've got designers and dev and PMs and QA, and we also brought along the ops, which is really great. So this was me and one of my colleagues. And the main thing that we got from this was we got to have a centralized goal. So we had ops and dev now working together. We had one backlog. I wasn't responsible for routers and switches anymore. I was just responsible for the billing platform. So essentially what we had was the makings of a DevOps culture. And you might think this is sort of the answer to resilience, but for us, this was just the start. So the main thing you get from having ops is they bring the human factor. So not everything can be automated. So they understand the right way to try and resolve an incident, even if it's just manually pushing buttons or pushing things around. They understand the frontline experience. So they have experience dealing with incidents under pressure and dealing with conflicting information. So there's a lot of experience that goes into actually running, trying to resolve incidents in the heat of the moment. And they actually also understand how it's running. So obviously for a billing platform, we're not selling anything in staging. The only place that it really matters is prod. And they actually understand how it's running. And then the developers can bring the technical expectations. So they know what they're trying to do and what's meant to happen. And they can also design for failure. So hopefully if you can get these two parts together, you can kind of do some good stuff. And that's what we started to do. So me on the ops side, joining up with the devs, we're able to start to get to some of the really important things that we were missing, like monitoring. That was pretty basic, so we got to that. And also to our build pipeline. So this is our build board. And it used to be described as a Christmas tree, because we'd have lots of little red kind of flashing lights. And we would deploy all the time when it was like the Christmas tree. And that was a really bad situation. So we really decided that we should only really deploy our code when it's all green. We shouldn't be allowing, just deployments anytime. Because basically we were just saying we didn't care what our tests were doing. And some other good things as we did was we also did the cultural, the team bonding, and we all went bowling. I just thought I'd put it in there because I ended up getting the highest score, so keep that for posterity. But we did a lot of good improvements over the time, and we ended up having a really good culture. And Atlassian at the time decided that it really wanted to try SRE, which is the sort of the new way of doing ops. And that's the idea that the ops guys are meant to get a little bit more involved with the code and actually start to write code and fix code, and hopefully shouldn't rely on the devs as much. So because we kind of already had this culture started, we became the pilot for our department. So we became the purchasing, there was a purchasing SRE team. So my ops colleague, he joined the SRE team, and I stayed on the dev side. And we hired some more engineers who are a little bit more interested in writing code, and they became part of the SRE team. And we also tried a technique of doing developer on rotation. So we'd put a developer from my team into their team and really try and bootstrap them up. And it got really good. We started to get our incidents down, especially our critical ones. And we had a lot more of a focus on doing big improvements. So SRE sort of really took the ops to the next level. New issues were pretty much tackled head on, like they weren't just put on a backlog for the developers to sort of not prioritize and ignore in their sprints. And it was sort of front and center. So anything that came out of incidents, we created priority actions that were meant to be actions straight away. And we'd follow up on these and we'd make sure that these were done. And out of this, we kind of thought it was a success. So Atlassian now has several SRE teams. So I was able to go back to spending more time with my dev team, and SRE were able to sort of take off. And then after a while, things were going all right, but we reached a bit of a crossroads. So we made a lot of really good progress, but we were no longer just sort of reacting and plugging holes. Like, we'd done all the obvious stuff. We got all our monitoring. We knew exactly what our service was doing now, how many Jiras or Confluences we were selling. But the problem is we'd still have regular incidents. They typically weren't as bad as the critical ones, but they were still around. And we thought, we should be able to do better than this. We can obviously improve it. And we had an idea that maybe what we really need to do is upskill the rest of the devs. So we had a lot of devs and just one sort of small SRE team dedicated to all these small dev teams. So we thought if we can sort of increase the playing field from the dev teams and get them more interested in ops, this will work. So I was tasked with trying to come up with some initiatives that we could do to try and improve the ops muscle, as we called it, for the dev teams. And at the same time, from higher up, there was a decision to say, maybe we should try chaos engineering. This seemed to be a really successful thing that other companies were doing, and we hadn't tried it yet, so maybe we should just try this next. And I thought, well, are we ready for this? We don't really know which direction we're going in. Is this the right thing for us? And I started to spend some more time looking at how we were doing our dev and ops relationship. And to my surprise, I found that there was actually a bit of a drift between dev and ops. So dev were getting, they were quite happy with how they were doing their code, and SRE were getting really good at what they were doing. But it seemed like there was a bit of a disconnect. I'm not sure if devs started to feel that SRE were doing really great, so we need to sort of hold off on it, we don't care. And I'm not sure if they really understood what contribution they had to this SRE model. So maybe SRE had it all covered and we didn't need to care. But the problem was we actually had devs on call, and the devs were actually still being called, so they're still being involved in the incident. So it's still a joint effort. And we would see things like this in our incident hip chat room. So for every incident we have, we automatically create a hip chat room where we can keep track of everything that happens as part of the incident. So this happened during a live incident. So one developer points to another one saying, I see something funny in our monitoring in New Relic. And the other one says, actually, I can't access it. And thankfully, he thinks on his feet and he gets screenshots. But it made me think that obviously there's more to monitoring than just collecting it. It's how we use it that really matters. And the question was, whose job is it? Is it the developers? Should they all be just taking on themselves to make sure that they have access to all the right monitoring systems? SRE knew how to use all these tools, but the developers were just expected to know how to do it. And no one really sort of owned this. And there were several other things like this happening. So we'd have questions like, someone would say in the incident room, they'd say, I really wish we had synthetic tracing for this so we can see what's going on. And someone else would reply, actually we do. You didn't know where it was, or no one showed you how to use it. And this would happen quite a lot. And I kept thinking, how can we really look at chaos engineering when we can't even sort of get these basic things right, I felt like, were we sort of regressing to our old ways, Collaboration is hard, and just doing your own work is quite easy. So, had we just sort of given SRE more resources, less focus and more time to do the same thing that was happening when we didn't have enough resources. But I felt like we still had this culture right. So I tried to understand what we could do to fix it. And in looking for these initiatives for doing this ops muscle thing, I came across resilience engineering. And for me, this was sort of my light bulb moment. So resilience engineering has been around for a long time and has a lot of application and research in sort of safety critical systems like aviation and stuff. And it's only recently been applied to web services as a discipline. So I'd actually read about it a couple years ago. So John Allspaw from Etsy, he's a bit of a champion for resilience engineering. But back when I read about it, we didn't really have our monitoring right. So it kind of had a little value to me. There was a lot of the state of tooling and stuff on the internet was still a bit immature. So I think now we're in a lot of a different place. And it made a lot more sense for me to apply the resilience engineering principles. And what's really great about resilience engineering is it doesn't sort of make any definition about what ops is meant to do and what dev is meant to do. It's just about what you need to be able to provide resilience for your service. And it kind of could be the thing that we could use as a way to push people back together and say everyone's responsible for this service. It doesn't talk about trying to automate away the problem. Humans are a big part of the problem, but they can also be a really big part of the solution. And we need to find ways to actually improve their contribution to that. And so the four main things that resilience engineering talks about is the four abilities of resilience. So it basically says you need these four abilities to provide resilience. And this is the ability to monitor, to respond, to learn, and then to anticipate. So the ability to monitor. So this is just your ability to be able to understand what's going on with your service. So if you can do this, then this is one step towards providing resilience for a system. And this can be done in several ways. So obviously you can have things like time series metrics, semantic monitoring, synthetic transactions, request tracing, anomaly detection. And then the next one is respond. So this is obviously the ability to respond to events and changes and to be able to do something about it. And this can just be simple things like notification, paging someone to come and do something, or even automated activities like detecting that you've got an increase in load and automatically scaling up your resources. And the third one is the ability to learn. So we really need the ability to learn from events, both faults and opportunities, if we want to provide resilience. So things are always changing, and we need to always keep learning and keep adapting to these systems. And this can be done with things like pairing. Postmortems are a really good way to learn from faults. And things like internal presentations can help with the opportunities, and obviously conferences like Atlas Camp are another good way to learn. And the last ability you need is the ability to anticipate. So this is the ability to detect that something's going to go wrong and sort of preempt it. So a good case for us is, and one that's not necessarily all about systems, is towards the end of the month, our billing platform, we have a huge increase in load. So we can anticipate that on around the 26th of the month that we're going to have 3 times the amount of load. So we can prepare for this. We can either scale up or take some initiatives to handle this load. And this can be done with things like capacity planning. You can do stuff like canary deployments, which others have talked about. So you can anticipate that something's going to go wrong and prevent it from happening. And chaos engineering and also architecture reviews, these are good ones to make sure that everyone understands what's changing so you can prevent it from actually getting out to production before it's potentially a problem. And maybe machine learning might be the next level for anticipate. But the really important thing is, though, to achieve resilience, you actually need sort of all 4 of these abilities, and you need them all to work together. So you can't just have really good monitoring and not have any ability to respond. There's no point alerting someone on a weekend if there's no one to actually do anything about it. And same with learn and anticipate. So you really need to be able to get them all, and if you can get all of them working, then you're going to improve the ability for you to have a really resilient service. But the big problem for us is that we could kind of tell that we weren't great at monitoring, but we didn't really know what we were good at either. So we really need to go about measuring resilience. So this is the first thing that we had to do, was try and figure out what our skills were in these different abilities. So obviously the things you get from measuring. So by measuring, we can identify weak spots. Obviously we can find out where we're really lacking. And we can also drive improvement. So there's probably tickets on your backlog that might actually help you with the other abilities that you don't really think of. And then you might be able to recognize that you're really bad at the ability to anticipate, and this task that's on your backlog could actually improve that. And maybe we should bring that forward. And the last one, which is really important for us, is centers of excellence. So we have lots of small autonomous teams within the billing platform, and Atlassian really gives us a lot of flexibility in how we run our teams. And people are able to really innovate in the way they work. And a lot of times they'll come up with something great and new, and they'll publish a blog and say, this is this great thing we did. But the other problem is that a lot of teams don't know that this is something that's really useful for them to consume. So by measuring it and by identifying who's doing what activities and how that's actually affecting their resilience, we can then take that and then hopefully apply it to other teams that are kind of weak in those areas. So we've been doing this obviously just a simple face-to-face discussion. So meetings. I know people always don't like meetings. They just want to write some code and do some work. But for us, there's a lot of value in this type of meeting. So the main thing we want from this meeting is to come up with some sort of result at the end of it. And that's what we've been doing. So what we've been doing is having meetings where we discuss each of the 4 abilities, and we talk about what we think about our ability to monitor, our ability to learn, respond, and anticipate. And at the end of it, we want to come up with a score and say, we're really good at this or we're really poor at that. So we really want to come up with, in our case, we've been just giving a simple out of 5 score and saying, we think our monitoring is great. It's out of 4. But the really important thing for us with these meetings is we really want to make sure that we get every role involved. So it's not just about, ops are really good at the monitoring and dev, you guys aren't doing your part. It's kind of, as a whole, how are we all working together? And we want to be able to own that score together. We want to say, we're a 4 this month or this quarter, and that's because we've been doing some really good work, or we're actually collaborating to make this happen. We want architects, PMs, whoever's involved in running their service in production, they should have a voice in what they think about their monitoring, or not their monitoring, but their resilience profile. And the other thing is we want everyone to come armed with data. So we want to use data to validate. And we want it to start the conversation, but we don't want it to end it. So we don't want people to say, we have 500 time series metrics, so we must be really awesome at monitoring. We want to be able to say, yeah, well, we've got 500 metrics, but all of our incidents that we have in our JIRA say that we don't have any metrics for all those incidents, so we're really lacking in that coverage. We want to be able to identify what we're really doing, but not to actually define it by some sort of automated system. We want people to talk about what they think is good and what they think is working and what they think is bad. And the last one is, we really want to revisit this periodically. So, obviously we're on the internet and things are changing all the time. 1 month we might be using Postgres, and the next month we might change something and use MySQL. And our monitoring might have been really great for Postgres, but now it's, it's completely different for MySQL. So we don't want, we want to make sure that we can also adjust the score down if we're actually getting worse at things, or if things are changing, how are we actually doing? So we've been doing this, and we've been collecting data. And if you want, I quite like visualization, so we've also been creating a little spider web graph to kind of to visualize our coverage. And hopefully this will keep changing over time and kind of end up a bit more rounded. Because what I really want to get us is having a bit more balance. So in some cases, we're over-investing in monitoring, and maybe we really need to find a way to balance out our resilience. So for the next step. So we've been doing this, and we've been collecting some really good data, and now we really need to find out, what are those initiatives that we can take from those centers of excellence and apply them to the other teams. And we really want to make sure that all the parts of the ops, dev, and everyone else can work together and try and make that score a reflection of their collaboration. Some of the things that we're trying to do are changing, like the initiatives that SRE have. So SRE have a game day exercise that they will do, and they used to just do it just for the SRE team, and they wouldn't get the devs involved. And in an incident, there is a point where they will hand off to devs and call them. So we really need to get everyone involved. So we're going to try and run game day exercises with the devs, so everyone's part of it. And we really want to try and lead to being more of a smarter company about how we invest in our resilience and how we change that. We don't want to just try random things and sort of pick it at different parts. We want to think about what's going to actually give the best benefit to us long term and try and apply that across the board. So hopefully you'll hear from me next time about how we're applying these. Awesome. Thanks.